Hi, I'm Hannah.
I'm Sean.
Mayor.
Corey, Dylan, Brandon.
So we're going to start with the first prompt. Throughout the second portion of the semester, we have been reading and talking about a conversation between atheism and Christianity/Catholicism. Begin this exam by providing an overview of Nietzsche's critique of Christianity. What are his main arguments against Christianity? In addition to his critique of Christianity, explain Nietzsche's arguments against reason. Discuss why Nietzsche must attack reason in order to undermine Christianity. Finally, analyze the implications of Nietzsche's transvaluation of values and the ethics of desire and the evolution of the Superman. So, guessing we're going to start off with his arguments against, or his critique of Christianity.
If you want, I have a quote to start off with on page 58 of Nietzsche. The most general formula at the basis of every religion and morality is, do this and this, refrain from this, and you will be happy. And I kind of think of that as the very basic formula of every religion is to make sure you don't go to a damnation of eternal hell, and make sure that you actually go to a heaven, so you make sure you're morally good throughout your life.
Yeah, I think it's one of his main arguments, is kind of going along with that is the church. Someone says all men should be unhappy, and then that's when they kind of look to, I guess, a god or a religion is when they are unhappy.
I mean, that comes from the one thing that he brought up is that Christianity is kind of like vampirism, that you have to be unhappy, it makes you unhappy because you're never going to be as good as God. So then you become guilty that you're never going to be as good as God, even though you're supposed to, and then it kind of comes this cycle.
Strive to be as good as him.
Yeah, you have to strive to be as good as him, but you're never going to be.
Creating sick people from guilt is what
Yeah.
the way I worded it. You just kill people into it. I thought it was interesting how at one point it kind of goes along with the whole unhappiness in the church. He talks about circumcision in the church and how it's supported heavily by this church, but really there's no benefit from it. It's more just increasing the likeliness of an infection or just harming an individual. And he also just talks about law, things like that. Another example he used was how Sudra women are prohibited from assisting the Chandalaya women at childbirth just because they're different people and stuff like that.
I think that's kind of with reason though, more why he undermines reason and uses that against Christianity. I don't know if you.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Alright. But another one of his arguments was he said that Christianity is nowhere near reality, and whenever the actuality comes into play, Christianity crumbles. Which
So it's him saying that reality. So
It's an enemy of science, which is
right, yeah. So actuality is science, and then when we bring that into Christianity, we're oh shoot, we can't argue with that.
Yeah, so I think that's one of those most important ones is that the majority of the world thinks on logical, reason-based things, and with religion you can't really do that because some of the things that are said within religions can be taken many different ways.
I mean, yeah, there's multiple things that you can't say aren't true. Obviously evolution is true.
Yeah.
So you can't just say oh yeah, we appeared because of God. No, science shows evolution is there. But I also think one of his arguments, I don't know if it was an argument against Christianity, but his love for Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, something this doesn't have to do with the Buddhism, but he was talking about, this is what I said in one of my reading responses, but he was talking about how people, he was going against Plato's ideas of that people should go against their senses, because he believes that there is a reason for it. He believes that ignoring one's senses or their inner emotions will completely fade away their life or their reason for living necessarily. necessarily. So he's saying if one enjoys a non-sensory version of the world, then they are against nature and against the living world. And then he goes into link that together with religion by saying that religions that believe in heaven are also against nature because they believe that the earth is technically not the real world that they're experiencing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know if
I
I
read-
read topic, but
I read something in another class about it was my philosophy class about how you were supposed to how you can't trust your senses. I'm pretty sure it was
yeah,
you have to disprove that the
yeah,
senses.
it's used like reasoning and thinking
Yeah,
skills.
you can't. It's not what you see isn't what is always there.
Mhm.
What
Yeah,
you
I-
hear isn't what's always being said. I think that plays kind of into it.
You were talking about Buddhism before?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how he supported Buddhism so much, because I thought of Buddhism more of like a religion,
Yeah.
but I feel like the way he talks about it is more of a lifestyle,
yeah.
which I thought that was interesting because, I don't know, it just made me think like, I don't know, what distinguishes a religion from a lifestyle if Buddhism is, because like many people would consider it a religion, but he considered it a lifestyle, so what's the big difference between Christianity being a religion rather than a lifestyle?
I wrote that down as because he was talking about how he says like Buddhism is healthier and more realistic because Christianity has the main focus of avoiding sin at any cost. It carries this like presuppositions that sin is horrible and it must be avoided, and that actually tends to be why Christians will tend to be more judging sometimes of others or less likely to feel as happy sometimes because it is impossible to avoid sin. It just happens. So they might feel like they're less worthy or this or that because they can't avoid their sin. Well, he goes on explaining that Buddhism isn't really like that. Its main focus is, Its main focus is to do your best to avoid sin, but it does happen. And it's like, it knows that they don't blame you necessarily for having sin. Well, Christianity will necessarily blame you for having sin. It's like, you should not have done that. You should not have acted upon that. Buddhism will go, well, you acted on that because you felt this way or that way, and it makes sense. But maybe think about it in the future of why you shouldn't have done this, because you learn from it. Like it doesn't necessarily tell you yes or no. It tells you more of like an open, broad way of reasoning and thinking about things. So that makes it to where it's a lifestyle you live rather than a exact truth you have to follow by that you listen to verbatim, like the Bible.
He says Buddhism is like quote unquote perfect because people, they like realize that they're not going to be perfect, but by them being like having cheerfulness and absence from desires, stuff like that, it's like it's perfect because it's the most realistic way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like
living.
Buddhism is more objective.
Yeah.
It's more fact.
I found in his readings, it's kind of like a big little, not a big section, like a couple lines. So I'm just going to read it. He starts off by saying, "It is part of a constitutional heritage," referring to Buddhism, "to be able to face problems objectively and coolly. It is the outcome of centuries of lasting philosophical activity. The concept of God was already exploded when it appeared. Buddhism is the only really positive religion to be found in history, even in its epistemology. It no longer speaks of the struggle with sin." Going back to what you were saying about sin, Buddhism just kind of, it ignores that whole part. So you're not struggling with yourself that whole time. And I think it varies from Christianity in the sense that you can, when it says that you face problems objectively and coolly, you think of things like an objective reason rather than a supernatural reason for it, and you just take things a little more reasonable. Like you were saying, it's just
You won't let things affect you as much as they would because you understand. You're like, hey, stuff happens. This is supposed to happen. I'm okay. I can move on from it. When in Christianity, it's like, why did this happen? Why does God want this to happen?
They kind of like come to peace with like
Mhm.
things
Yeah.
that happen in their lives.
They go,
sometimes
well,
they just happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And you gotta take it for what it is. And that's what I took away from Buddhism.
It also says that, I mean, I thought one of his like arguments against Christianity was, he said Christianity is the religion of pity. And like he says, in Christianity, neither morality nor religion come in contact with reality, which is what we talked about. And like he says it's simply nothing but imaginary causes and imaginary effects. So like causes like God and like effects like sinning and stuff like that. So I think they like one of his arguments I thought was that we put too much of like our thankfulness and like our joy and like the stuff that we do into like God. Like we like kind of were like thank you to God too much, you know, when we do it.
The way he put it in class was that people were willing to suffer and die for Christianity. So like you're putting everything ahead of it. You're putting your happiness
Yeah.
behind Christianity, behind your faith and everything.
Yeah, it says like the proud people need a God to sacrifice to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gives people, it almost like gives them more of like a purpose for what they're doing, more of a sense of like, okay, I'm doing this for this reason because it's gonna get me to heaven in the end, or
Yeah, it's how they justify it.
Yeah, it's like he says like fearing religion is more of it, not just like being religious.
Yeah, you don't want to go to hell, you want to go to heaven, so you're gonna do what God tells you to do so that you end up where you want to be. It's the idealized, I guess, form of religion.
You can explain his arguments against like okay, so it says in addition to his critique of Christianity, explain Nietzsche's arguments against reason. Discuss why Nietzsche must attack reason in order to undermine Christianity.
We kind of touched on that, I think, just because you have to attack, like, so Christianity, like, when there's not sometimes there's like another answer for it that's reason-based, like science-based, but people still choose to believe like the supernatural like type of thing.
It's contradictions.
Yeah.
He has to like attack Christianity for a reason because in Christianity you don't really have a reason. You're going along with like you don't have your own. He wants you to look outside of that and go to like why are you rationalizing it this way? He wants you to like you can also that can like lead you to God, lead you to Christianity, but he wants you to think for yourself, reason for yourself first before you just follow along with what Christianity.
Also, like Christianity is so old.
Yeah.
And he talks about how like we learn new ideas every day, but Christianity is so old and it doesn't change. So like yeah, like I really like as we learn we form new ideas so the old ones die and then but we somehow keep the old forms of reason and morals when that should change. When like new ideas.
Yeah.
And like even like he talks about like the Bible and the first story in the Bible and stuff like that. And like the Bible is so old now. I mean it was old before too, so
It's older now, yeah.
With this technical age, things are
Right.
changing even more. That it like there's unforeseen things
So, like,
that can't occur in this world now
he said
that they
like
couldn't have predicted in the past.
how can like the church actually be truthful if all the morals are so old?
Yeah, and they're just outdated. Like so much stuff has changed in life. It's like for instance, it kind of made sense in the past to go like it's not okay to be gay because maybe they really just needed all the repopulation they could get. Like they weren't stable. It wasn't a stable civilization as compared to how we are right now. Like so they maybe it made sense like hey well if people start becoming gay. Maybe everybody will start becoming gay, and then we literally won't have reproduction anymore. The world will start to die. All right, well, sounds like we can't do that anymore. Well, today's world, you don't have to even have kids. You don't have to. You can go to the doctors and you can get reproduction, like surgery, stuff like that. You can get procedures done to do that. So like that's an example of like one moral that's very outdated. Just to like the things that they tell you not to do.
Like he said like our basic morals are based on things that aren't true anymore.
Yeah, based on that's very Like also, it's like he. I think one of the biggest reasons he has to attack reason is because like if you just look like there really is no facts to argue or discuss. Like we talked about like the first day of classes, you can't scientifically argue like religion. You can't argue it with using scientific facts by any means because there is none. So his only way of attacking it is to use reason. He has to break it down using critical thinking and reasoning skills, like rhetorically, because that's the only way to actually discuss it. There's no other way to actually. You either follow it, you don't follow it, or you.
It gives you like a new way to understand things too.
Yeah.
Because when you come to terms with, okay, so for example, like Moses parting the Red Sea. I don't know. I'm not saying that if somebody believes in that, it's
Go right ahead,
but
yeah, but
I
it's-
don't personally believe
believe
that that's
that,
not physically possible.
Yeah.
So, forgot what I was gonna say. I'll finish that in a second.
But yeah, it's like that's something that definitely, or I would say, I personally definitely don't think happened. Maybe maybe it's a moral. I think there is a reason that it was written, and there's definitely some meaning that it had back then. But nowadays, people look at it and they go, "Oh my God, that was a miracle. This crazy whatever happened." And I think that it was like, you ever heard of folktale? Like obviously they're not true, but they'll teach you morals. They'll tell you to do a good or bad thing. And that's where I felt like that the Red Sea comes from. Maybe there's some reason like it's like, oh well, you gotta help bring people to liberation.
That's
You
why they
just
say
fight.
fear.
Yeah.
Because then, like, that's what we were talking about, like, fear of religion.
Yeah.
Like, but, I mean, I even said, like, I think, like, being Catholic has taught me, like, obedience. Like, I'm not scared of it, but, like, it's taught me to be obedient. And it reminds me to give thanks to that which surrounds me. Like, I'm not as, like, into myself, you know?
I think
So-
I'm sorry.
No, go
I
ahead.
get what you're saying.
No.
I was just, I'm going back to like
Go
what I
ahead.
said earlier. I was just saying that what I was going with the Red Sea thing was that it just gives you like a new understanding of like, okay, so you're past like the whole part that, okay, that's not possible. So you can look into like the deeper meaning of what he actually did.
That's-
So,
yeah.
okay, so he parted the Red Sea. That what he's really doing is he's leading his people, not necessarily
Cutting
that
a sea
he's
in
cutting
half,
the sea in
yeah.
half, but he's leading his people where they needed to go, maybe through some treacherous terrain. That
And it shows that
so
like
it gives you like more of their story and like a realistic like.
really, yeah,
sense.
it shows that it's like not necessarily splitting the Red Sea, but maybe it's something else that was a difficult path. It was
Like
something
not
that
literally.
it was something that seemed impossible, but they showed that with strong effort and will, you can make it happen. You can make anything that's impossible possible. I think that's what the moral was behind it.
Yeah.
Or like this is kind of off topic, but like with Jesus and feeding the fish. Have you ever heard like they say that the actual reasoning behind that, it wasn't that he made like 2 fish or whatever it was, 1 fish turned into like 1,000,000 and the bread turned into a bunch of different things. What he did was he taught the people to share. He didn't find 1 fish and make 100. He taught people this is how you share. This is how you become good people together. So everybody got a piece. That's what happened. It wasn't that.
But, like, how is that, like, attacking reason to undermine Christianity?
I don't know. I just got off topic.
Yeah.
To be straight up.
That's what I thought.
I said this is off topic and then I talked about it for 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Analyze the implications of Nietzsche's transvaluation of values. I was thinking say that wrong. And the ethics of desire in the evolution of the Superman.
I think that goes back to what I was talking about earlier with let me get it back up. What about how he believes that like Christians don't necessarily believe in the real world, or they go against nature because they believe that the earth is not the real world, even though we would believe it is a world, that it is a real world. But Christians would believe that it's not the real world because there's an afterlife, there's an after utopia that they would experience. So that's like a trans valuation of values. Like that's looking at that and going, well, your values say that you're not worried about this world. Technically, like you're not worried about this because you know you're gonna have this afterlife. But it's like what if you don't?
Yeah,
Or
kind of
what
like
if you wasted your life? Stuff like that. I think is what he's trying to say. Maybe. What do you guys think?
well, like with the transvaluation of values, like that's basically like we need to destruct Christianity. Like we need to start over. Is basically what that in itself is saying. I think.
Yeah, he wants to like take
Yeah.
the suffering of Christianity and flip it and make it like that's not the most important thing. We want to focus on like the good part of life
Yeah.
and like less on that.
And Christianity focuses on the
Yeah.
negative.
Evaluation just like means like to you're looking at your values from the opposite like side. You're going across to the other side. You're changing how you value things and what it means, things that mean.
I think like he was saying like Christianity like lowered people below their potential
Yeah.
just by worshiping death over life.
It made you not want to try more things because you were scared of possibly failing or like sinning. You were
Right.
It built
And then
a lot more fear into people.
Once you sin too much, then death.
Yeah.
Then you think about hell.
And then overall, just like what does that lead to? I think it just takes like the beauty of like life out of the whole situation. Like Christianity, like ultimately just led people to like always thinking like ugly things about something. Like I don't know, people don't see like the good things in life anymore.
Like
They
having
just,
a baby before marriage. Like
yeah, like
some people think like, oh my god,
Like,
it's
you had a-
terrible.
but then if you ask any married couple, they'll say like a lot of people will say having a kid's like the best thing that happened to them.
Even if you're
That's
not
like a beautiful moment in your life, but just because you didn't say like you get married formally, like
also
it
like
turns
It
into
can cause a
something
lot of
ugly.
problems. Yeah, no, like then you have a split parenthood. The kid doesn't learn grow up as well. A lot of problems get created from that.
and like Christianity like believes in like chastity and stuff. Like when that's how we reproduce. So like it's made multiple people not reproduce and just like certain things like that, it's made multiple people stop, I guess, doing things that aren't even that bad.
Yeah.
And actually like
Showing their ankles during sex.
Again, it doesn't really fit into our values of today.
yeah.
Things are changing, so our morals have to change with us still. It's like you guys said that becoming pregnant before marriage. It's not. I mean, some people still look at it as like a bad thing or a sin, but not. Most people don't like think twice about it. Really, they get that it happens. So like, we have to change the way we look at things to be able to. We shouldn't use progress in this class, but to progress, to move forward as a society in the best possible way.
Like that modernity thing we talked about last time. Like what's
Just
always
it's
changing. Yeah.
I think that's hard though, like when we were talking about progression, like we never have a goal.
That's
No
what I was thinking when he
goal.
was talking in classes.
It's just
what
to
we
move
progressing
forward.
towards. Usually,
Yeah,
But it's like
if you want to
let's
make progress
set
towards
something.
what's the goal? Like,
And once you
Which
get there,
direction are you
then
going?
set your next one.
Yeah.
But like everyone's just all over the place. But that's just my freaking
people
opinion.
consider these things that are like, a lot of things in science are discovered by accident.
Right.
So they consider that like,
Like you just trial and error. When something works out, it does. When something doesn't, it doesn't. And then we just try to move on from there. You always learn something from doing something.
it's not necessarily
Never mind.
progress, but it's like, okay, yeah, we discovered this long way, but that's not progress because we didn't say we were looking for that.
Yeah.
What about you, Sean P?
Yeah, I guess I kind of agree with that. I was not paying attention. I was trying to find more in the book for it, but overall, yeah, I was thinking more on the baby thing. It's not necessarily that we're upset that they had a baby before sex. Say you're 16. It's more as of also, how are you going to be financially stable to bring up the baby in the world? Is she going to have a father? Is the father going to leave? Or like is that state?
I think that's changing as well. People look at, okay, you grew up without a dad in the past. They look at like, okay, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. You know. They
But
look down
nowadays,
upon
the
it.
girls are becoming more equal to men also, where they can get a job, they can support themselves also now.
New times.
So it's like two women could support a child easily, two men and stuff like that. Like different relationships wise stuff.
Sean P, what about Superman?
Superman? I'm not really sure.
I put like his like form of Superman is like that's his hero. I think like that's Nietzsche's hero, because like this is like all basic morals. I guess he was saying once again were based on untrue things, and like but like this Superman is like beyond good and evil. Like he's just perfect.
So is the Superman just the ideal human?
I think well
You can call
no.
it human.
I think it's a dangerous idea.
Yeah.
I mean, that's someone living with no rules. That's like their own self beliefs. No religion, go ahead. But like no rules, saying what you are, doing whatever you want. Like that's the
Doesn't cause
Superman
problems.
he's talking about. And imagine just if everyone did that. Like
But
So
there'd be no reason for civilization? Or
That
you
could be
like, no?
his hero, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that will help us in evolution.
Could you view him more as an anarchist then? Anything? Because if he has no roles, he's just living by himself.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to
But
go start your own
I guess it
society.
depends on if it's in a society, like
Right.
other people are there that you're living with, don't have these rules too. Or if you're just by yourself, yeah, I would say.
And we,
you
even
are.
if you're by yourself, you still make too many decisions every day.
Right, you think about everything you do.
You think about everything. You can't not have morals. You can't just. Then how are you gonna think about things?
Yeah, there's some
You would,
hesitation.
something's gonna make you feel some type of way towards something.
Yeah.
So you need to have a way to analyze it and interpret it. So I do. I don't know if that's the Superman I would look up to, but I can understand where he's coming from. It does make because maybe if every single person felt that way, and it's almost like a in a perfect world. But if every single person did feel that way, then I guess people wouldn't be jealous. People wouldn't act out of anger. People wouldn't. So there would be no problems in the world anymore. But then again, I feel like there would be no reason for people to talk to each other anymore.
Well,
There would
people
be-
be happy. I
yeah.
feel like you don't know happiness unless you have a
It's so
problem.
sad. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's no happiness without sadness. So a lot of the values of living life would be taken. It'd almost be like dimming away your life. And I feel like that's something he talks about a lot. That's bad. So I feel like that's almost slightly contradicting.
Yeah, I think
think
like I
that's
said, like
something-
it's
yeah,
dangerous. Like
to
it's
talk
just
about that. Yeah.
too much of a dangerous
I
idea
don't
for
think
everyone.
They're human at that point either. Like you have no.
Yeah, it's like dehumanizing.
You're not
someone.
evil. You're not good.
You're like an animal.
There is no. I don't think.
That was the
they
thing
don't
about how
have-
animals do.
They
that's-
do whatever they want.
They don't care about anything. They don't have morals. They do what they
They
do.
act on their instincts.
Yeah, and I think what makes us more advanced is that we're not the Superman he's talking about. We can think and we reason, and we choose to do that. We choose to do that because we know that if there's better alternatives if you can think and reason. Like if you think about it, the only reason we have this civilization, we have buildings, we don't have to worry about a wolf eating us when we walk outside the doors because we can reason and think ahead. We use our intelligence to go and plan for future events so that we don't get hurt by them.
Yeah.
And you can't really do that without having morals and concepts of how things work or how people will act.
It's been about 20 minutes.
Yeah,
you
let's
want to
move
move on
on.
to?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we need to.
Alright, you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
Walker Percy Stenoto syndrome is a response to a Western culture built upon the ideas of Nietzsche and, by extension, Freud. In this section, develop Percy's vision of a scientific culture progressing without the constraints of religion. Is it possible to resist the progressive reforms discussed in the text in class? Gero-euthanasia, pedeuthanasia, infanticide, genetic engineering, eugenics, biochemical social engineering, lowering the age of consent. Without the existence of an objective moral order that makes normative demands on human life. For instance, if humans are reducible to their programming, are the scientists in Thanatos syndrome wrong to alter a person without their consent?
So is it possible to resist the progressive reforms discussed in the text without the existence of morals, basically, moral orders?
I was going to say, do you want to
No,
start
go
on
ahead.
the progressing without the constraints of religion?
Yeah.
The sentence
Yeah.
before that.
Whoops, I didn't see that one.
You're good. I was gonna say progressing without the constraints of religion, it would be kind of easier in a way. You don't have to worry about morals.
I just want to say, like, let's make sure, like, we're developing Percy's vision of
Yes.
this, not ours.
That's true.
So, just a quick.
Go on.
No. I was just letting everyone know because that's what I was thinking at first, and then.
Well,
I mean, Percy, I feel like, I don't know how to say this. So in the Percy book, like, they advance science by, like, obviously, like, putting salt in the water and stuff like that. But,
Sorry, just
I know I have an answer. I would say
yeah,
that.
you go for it, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So Percy's vision of scientific culture progressing without the constraints of religion. I feel like he sees that when you don't have a religion to give you morals or don't have religion in the back of your mind to think about what's truly right or wrong, something to guide you necessarily, that's when you start scientifically going in the wrong direction because science has no reason. It has no this is the answer, this is not the answer, that's it. there's no arguing in whether science is true or not. It either is or it isn't. So when it comes to his vision of how it's progressing without the constraints of religion, he goes and shows that people are going to do whatever they can to do what they think is better. And scientifically, this is better. It's better for people to not have like all the problems they had. Things started to disappear, anxiety, this and that. And the only things that seemed to lash out was sexual desire and what was the other thing? The sexual desire and what was the other thing?
For what?
That
Overall
person.
happiness.
Overall,
really.
yeah, there's two
Like-
big things that like expressed more from the sodium ions. It was sexual desire and
They were like really smart.
smart, yeah,
Yeah,
and
smartness.
memory. So so like, but a bunch of other things went away. They started to, but they kind of became less of people. The people that were doing it, like the scientists behind it, didn't really understand that there's a problem with it because of their lack of religion and all of that. They had no morals. They just assumed that we could keep going in this direction and we could keep just progressing, but they didn't really know where they were progressing towards. They had no idea what the end goal was. They just said, oh, well, these people are definitely, society's working better, people are working better together. Great, why don't we just do this
Is
forever?
that necessarily a bad thing?
They talk about this
I don't
in
know. That's a good question.
like the end of the book.
Mhm.
Well, that's when like he really starts talking about religion. Is when like Ellen converts. That's yeah, you know what I meant.
Yeah.
And then like he talks about like Father Smith again and like what Catholics would do. But I think it kind of was just like, he never really had to talk about it because at the end it kind of like all came together of like what he did, why he did, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, because his end goal was to have Father Smith reopen his hospice, which it definitely going along with Eric said, it just proves that I think Percy's trying to say that we almost need religion as just like a guideline to direct science in the right direction. I agree with you.
Because if you don't,
Because
science can go anywhere.
it can go anywhere, and I think that's really when it gets super dangerous.
But the humans would progress so much farther than what we are now.
But the question is, what's the point of progressing if you don't know what you're progressing for?
Yeah, if you think you're like progressing in science, all these upcoming things, designer babies is one of the things. You can pick what genes you want expressed in your baby and how they're gonna look. You want blue eyes, you want blonde hair, or whatever you want. I think that's
It's weird. It's playing
not
God.
necessarily progressing. First of all, you're pushing along evolution, and that's a natural process.
Yeah.
And it's not really. You might think, okay, so the technology is progressing, but you're creating these humans that don't care about anything but sex and being happy, and they don't care about anything else in their lives. So how is that still like?
See, but sometimes
How is that like something you would want? That's like egressing society. You're
No,
regressing
I-
society.
I agree with that, but some people could argue. I don't necessarily agree with. I don't agree with this, but some people could argue the other side, saying that, well, what if we never got vaccinations? What if we never got those kind of things? And then they could say that's something that people a while ago had problems. People to this day still go against it because of religion. Like some people will still not vaccinate their kids because they believe it's God's work or this or that. They will not do certain medicines because of that. But some people will argue, what if vaccination and stuff, it seems like a good thing. We're all living fine, we're doing good. But what if that's why, there's a secret problem about it? Like, for instance, we have too many dumb people in the world because natural selection hasn't played as good of a role. There's too many this in the world. There is always the negative aspect to every progression. You know what I mean? Like, even something as great as vaccination can have that. So I
For
definitely
every
think.
action is
Exactly. There's always a negative and a positive to everything. You just gotta look for it.
I was kind of like basing this, like to me, like this sentence and question, whatever. Like I really brought it back to like when he was talking to Father Smith, and like on page throughout like pages like 364 and like kind of on there, that's when like he says like, yeah, like Father Smith only came to me whenever he needed me. He only came to me when he needed help. Like Ellen was right. He just had a hook on me because of how I grew up, and like, but then like Father Smith said, you've been deprived of faith. All of us have as part of the times, and I think like the whole thing that happened, he was deprived of faith. Like everything that he went through, I guess that's what made him change. And then, just like Nietzsche said, he's saying like even if the truths of religion could be proved to you, it wouldn't make much of a difference, would it? Like even if God was standing right in front of you and then left, like would it make
You would
that
have
much?
to like, you would have to make yourself believe that okay, that was.
Yeah.
It's just senses
Yeah.
can lie. You can
Yeah,
go
you
on.
can't try. Yeah, it goes back to not
But
trusting.
ten,
your
10
senses.
years later, you could go, did that really happen? Like, you really could, because it's 10 years later.
Everyone, if you explain things to you, who's gonna?
And believe me,
Yeah,
eventually
yeah.
so many people will push you down saying, yeah, whatever, yeah, this or that.
Yeah.
You're going to eventually one day go, that memory's so old.
Yeah.
Maybe they're right. Maybe I was just crazy. Maybe this, maybe that. Kind of confused with this
But-
question.
Yeah, I know I thought this one was a hard question. Go ahead.
I think that like last discussion could tie us right into the next part of the question, where is it possible to resist like the idea, the constant like drive in our minds that are like we need to keep progressing, we need to keep progressing. Do you think like religion's the only thing that could stop that progression? Is there, you think, like laws of some sort?
I think
So
that
wait, I'm sorry. How does this like what do you,
that's the question.
That's the next part of the question.
what
Is
is
it,
it? Where is it?
is it possible to resist the progressive reforms discussed in the text in class without the existence of an objective moral order that makes normative demands on human life? So basically, is it possible to go against progressive reforms without having moral obligations / like religion?
It's kind of like that
views?
saying like just because we can, should we?
Yeah. And
I
it's-
mean like
But that's like
I-
without having morals. They're saying so like that is like kind of a moral. Like okay, yeah, we can do this, but should we?
Should
You're
we? Yeah.
eliminating that.
I
And
think-
it's just like okay, we can do this, so let's do this.
without the
think that they're-
existence of an objective.
I think it's
It's
very.
asking like, is it possible to
To
do
do
this
it with-
without it's not the best for everybody, but you're still gonna do it.
It's like, is there a way to
Like just
argue
perceive it.
against this without using morals or religion to argue against it?
What do you think?
I think Percy thinks that it's not, I think he doesn't think it's possible. I think
Yeah.
he thinks we're gonna be like, we're all declining, we're all gonna be dumb enough to where that like this objective moral order isn't gonna matter because we're not gonna know what that is, like what's best.
I agree with what you're saying. I mean, throughout the whole thing, he's talking about. It seems like he's leaning towards like, we're hearing it from Tom's point of view.
Yeah.
So we're hearing it from a man that opposes what everybody else is doing. So I think he thinks that it's a hard life to, or it's a hard world to live in like that. But he's saying that Tom is like, I'm getting all jumbled, but Tom is right in like what he believes in the culture because I'm just lost.
Yeah, no, well, I would say it is not possible to resist the progressive reforms without the existence of an objective moral order, because if there is no objective moral orders, if there's no reasoning for why it could be wrong, and there's no critical thinking involved, there's no analysis
I mean, that's
between
what Bob
people,
Perdue
anything like
says.
that. Yeah, if there's none of that involved, science is just going to go as far as it can. That's just how it's going to be. It's going to be whatever is possible, do it. It's going to be like like a good example is the Nazis, what they did back in those times. I'm sure they didn't have the best morals in mind, and they didn't go with those things, and they just did as much as they could with science. It advanced science a lot. It really did. We learned a lot from it, but they just did trial and error on everything and anything they could, killing off almost an entire religion of people, trying to do whatever. And I think that we don't have morals, we don't have anything like that. Nobody's going to try to go against what's happening, because they'll go, oh, it's new, it works, this is cool, why not? There's no reason not to.
I think that's like the main purpose of Tom. Is where I was going with it earlier was that he's showing how someone with morals would look at this whole would look at this whole thing, and you know how he's talking about it and how he's seeing things and how he's very hesitant towards it. I think it shows that Percy thinks, okay, yeah, we can't really live a life in a world like this because Tom's here thinking somewhat rational, but all these other people are against him, and you see how it's going. It's just not working.
Because they're all happy. I mean,
Yeah.
like for the most part, I feel like all the characters are rather happy in this situation. I mean, they're smarter, like they're sexually active. They're just.
I think that's why Bob says, name one good reason why what I'm doing is so wrong.
Yeah, because everyone's happy.
Do you know if Bob ever actually drank the water with them? Do you remember if it says that specifically?
No, I do
Because
not.
if they're gonna do this, I could see all the scientists never drinking any of it, and then
Right.
they can just play God with their own people.
Yeah,
And
it is
that's-
like playing golf.
And
Even with
that's
even if they
different.
are taking it, I still think it's like
because they know.
They
The-
know.
the
Yeah,
they know what they're
population-
doing,
the
everyone else
population
doesn't.
needs
if
to
they
know.
if they start realizing they don't like the way they're going, yeah, they're probably gonna stop.
Yeah.
But
No,
they don't really care what everybody else.
I'm
is.
pretty sure
They'll
Bob
work
did.
He did drink it.
Because I think the whole reason he agreed to give Father Smith back his, like, whatever mission, whatever, was because he was, like, detoxing. I think it says something specifically about him detoxing.
You're probably right.
Wow, it's a big book.
Okay, so
It's a lot of pages in there.
the end says, like, for instance, if humans are reducible to their programming, are the scientists wrong to alter a person without their consent?
Just because of that word consent, I think yes. Because it'd be a different story if you told people, hey, we're doing a test experiment. We can't tell you what it is because then you're gonna have placebo effects, but we're doing something to you. Do you consent or not? And if they say yes, then it's okay, completely fine, because they said, we don't know what's happening, but we're okay with it.
But if humans are reducible to their programming,
So they're barely even gonna be
That's
in their
the point.
mind.
They
that's
don't
like
have
the
See,
whole
that
thing.
I would say
sense of self
that's
like
even
he was
worse
talking about
because
before in class. Like if you don't have that,
You're not gonna
if you're just all you are is the biochemical processes.
you're not
You're
gonna.
like a biological illusion.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't have a self. Okay, you're not thinking about. I'm not thinking that I want to go walk over there. Something in my body is telling me that I need to go walk over there.
So does
I think that.
But what if what you're thinking is just a biochemical illusion?
I think
And
Yeah.
deep down, technically, everything we do comes from a biochemical.
But I think if we look at it that way, like reducing them to their programming, I don't think it's wrong.
I don't either.
I think
Percy
that you're losing
Yeah,
the
I don't
sense of
think
self,
Percy
so
thinks it's
just-
wrong either, but Percy's doing it as we're people. Like,
Yeah.
We're doing experiments on rats.
Yeah.
Okay, so they don't have a sense. I mean, they have some. We'll say they don't have a sense of self, or just
Right.
they're being thrown in these cages. They're being injected with these things. They're not telling them that it's okay, but
And it's not like what they're
We're just
doing
doing
is
it.
making them terrible.
Yeah, but I would say rats are different because, well, anything is different than a human because
Well,
humans.
these aren't
are
humans.
at the
We're
sense you're
reducible.
to
We're
your programming.
To their programming.
So
So
what-
everything is just everything. Any living being is just a product of their biochemical
There you go.
processes occurring within their body, and it's a chemical. So it's chemicals that make you happy. It's chemicals.
So are you
that-
saying would it be
Yeah.
wrong to alter them from, like, for instance, for me right now, talking reasoning down to a biochemical just processes?
if you didn't know that we were altering them,
Yeah.
would you think?
Like
that
you're
we-
already at your point of you have no programming at all, you're not aware. Then we start manipulating you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought it was going.
It's
from,
not we
I
take
thought it
a
was going
normal
from
human
up
and take
here
her down.
down
No.
here.
right now. It's
You're literally the
No,
mindset of a
yeah.
rat right now.
Oh, then no, I don't think that that's wrong because they can't consent.
Yeah.
They
They're just
wouldn't
a
have the
they're just a
ability
meat
to-
suit.
Oh, okay, I just
You
read
know,
the
it depends
question.
on if that chemical
Yeah,
process
if
through,
they're-
if they're going to give their consent in a way, I guess.
It's like there is no, yeah, and it's like you can
It's all
never.
chance.
It's almost like being born. You didn't ask to be born, but it happened, and here you are doing this. You didn't have consent. You didn't give anybody consent to be born, but you are. And it's not wrong to have sex and have a kid. It's actually a wonderful thing. People would say.
Yeah.
So I would say yes, no, it's 100% okay to do to somebody if you're trying to build them up, or if you're trying to make them a more capable being.
Alright, to move on.
Yeah,
Number 3. After providing the objective description of Nietzsche's and Percy's arguments, the group should discuss the persuasive appeal of the positions. What arguments, if any, are most convincing and persuasive? In particular, students should focus upon the reasonableness and logical consistency of the positions and not merely what is subjectively or emotionally appealing about the arguments. Are there better, an example, more reasonable arguments that could be provided on either side?
I just thought that too.
I was like, I knew it stood for example, but I never knew what the I
Yeah,
stood
neither did
for.
I.
I was like, IE, what is that? Like, I thought it was some special word example. In example.
What does it stand for?
It stands for an example.
Because I was reading it.
Anyways.
We learned something new today.
What arguments, if any, are most
Interesting
convincing
fact.
and persuasive?
For Nietzsche,
I think he had some good ones.
I would say him saying that it creates like sick people out of guilt is one of his most persuasive ones for me. I mean, if you think about it, everybody today that's not everybody, but a lot of devout like Orthodox Christians will say that they would do anything to go to heaven. They don't want to go to hell. They would do whatever they need to do for that sense. So like, okay, you're guilting them into doing what is right according to that religion. I just think that's one of the most.
I think one of his most also was obviously like the whole science aspect, like just constantly like going at it. I think that was his like most consistent position was science and how we like Christianity can't prove science wrong,
Right, but
I
science
guess.
can
but
not
science
prove Christianity wrong, but
like
point out logical
yeah, he
fallacies
even says
in it.
like that's like their worst enemy.
Yeah, it's, if anything's gonna take it down, it's gonna be science.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it was interesting, this whole Buddhism thing.
Yeah,
I actually
You
really
love that.
enjoyed reading that, like,
Yeah.
because I honestly believe that, like, the whole point of Christianity, like, you, like, trying to be perfect, it's just so unreasonable and so, like you're never going to be able to do that. There's nobody on this earth that can do that. So, like, I do like that there's, like, the way he looks at Buddhism as, the perfect way. I enjoy that. Like, I thought that was super
He's
interesting.
trying to like reach like inner peace. He doesn't
Yeah.
care about peace with other people or other beings. Just
Yeah.
you gotta get with yourself and
Be happy
be
with
happy
who you
with
are.
yourself.
Yeah.
Don't look at what somebody else expects of you. Throw all that out. It's just
It's
I
all that
think
matters
that,
is
but that
you.
is very. I think it is a strong argument that
I
people
think
like
it-
Buddhism like that. Buddhism like that.
like as a like myself like as a Catholic though, I think some of his stuff comes up a little harsh.
Definitely.
I mean, I would.
Especially
Like-
just picking off all the lines in the Bible.
Yeah, and like Christianity being the religion of pity. Like, well, thanks, dude.
He does go on. He does go on to explain it though.
Right.
Yeah,
Which he's consistent.
Yeah.
which is helpful. Like I thought one of the biggest things, or something really valid that he made for an argument was that he talked about how like Christians have ingrained themselves in today's like social values and practices and stuff. And this is a problem because it has like dulled the thoughts of philosophical thoughts like throughout time. Like questions that really had no answer, people just didn't attempt to answer. They would go, well, God is here. God is here to follow me. It's like sometimes you don't know the answers to things. God is here, and you don't know the answer to everything, but you should always think about it. Because if you don't think about it and at least try to unravel what you're talking about or thinking about, you're not going to gain intelligence. You're not going to be able to make better decisions in the future about certain things. You shouldn't just go, oh, well, there's no way of learning, so don't worry about thinking about it.
It stops people
Yeah,
from.
it stops
Yeah, like
Creative
lowered
thinking.
our
And
ability.
yeah, he says
kind of makes
Thinking
you,
critically.
I guess.
he says that he claims like the physical
Yeah.
world is always
Go.
he claims like the physical world is always changing, and since we can never really understand something that
That was another big argument of his.
yeah,
Like,
you can
we're not
don't get
Christianity isn't changing with the times. Christianity is like back here.
yeah, and we
like,
need to allow it to change with the times, but people don't want to because when that happens, they start to take Christianity a little less literal, and that scares them. And they go, wait a second, you're telling me this isn't verbatim exactly true. There are things that aren't necessarily accurate in this. This could be just more morals than exactly accurate. No. We're going with the old values. That's when Jesus was alive. He said we're going to do this and that, and that's how people want to think. They don't want
The other issue is, say, some other guy, I don't know, climbs a mountain, pulls new stone tablets saying, these are the new 10 commandments.
Yeah.
People aren't going to take him seriously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's because they're like, oh, that's today. There's no
Yeah.
proof.
No, this guy made
People,
it up.
it's not like
Yeah,
people.
guys need to
Yeah,
write
it's
this
like
down.
nobody's
Exactly.
followed this.
So why
but
should we follow him?
you look at Christianity, it's like, oh, for 2,000 years, people have been pretty cool with this. About no more like 1,500, but like, hey, we're cool, right? Yeah, Christianity's been going on. There's no reason to stop. People are scared of change. Why change? We're good. Like,
Do you have anything to say about Percy's arguments? Persuasion?
I didn't really like. I mean,
I don't think he made his. I don't think he made his.
I don't think he made a
argument
clear or
necessarily.
consistent argument.
Yeah,
I
he
think
kind of
he
just.
reached a point in the end.
Right
Yeah.
in the end.
Yeah.
He kind
But
of
it
he
wasn't
bounced
like-
around a lot.
Yeah,
like,
Yeah, it took him a
certain-
whole like, and like he could have like gave us a few like hints in there.
Yeah, he wasn't
like,
as blunt as.
Right.
This one was more.
It was very
But it was
unbiased.
also more of a
Yeah.
story.
I would say
Yeah.
it was a lot more unbiased,
more
though,
like
that's
a
for
novel
sure.
rather than like a critique,
Mhm.
in my opinion.
But even like, I don't really think his arguments were persuasive or convincing because they were fiction.
Yeah. High sodium in water doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, 'cause if you put
Even if it
any-
did, it's
That's
not
what I
happening.
thought too.
It's
when
just
I-
gonna get high
flow
blood
at
pressure.
you.
I was-
Yeah.
You can't have that much sodium in your body. You're like,
It's gonna
stop.
your body. There's certain
It's
important things that run on sodium, and if you have any heavy metal in your body that's in excess amounts, is toxic.
Well, you'll never have to worry about getting goiters in your throat. That's for sure.
That's
All right.
iodine, not sodium.
Oh, you were close.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
Anyways,
I tried.
but like persuasive wise, like, I mean, it kind of like we talked about how like we fear religion, like it kind of scared you. It didn't, like thinking about what the government can do. I think his was like fear.
Dude, I think
I think
it's
it's
that shit right now, but that's just
It's showing us that there has to be like checks and
Yeah.
balances.
Dude, if-
of, like
like if you're
science.
Yeah,
There is like checks and balances in the government. There's got to be.
But it's like, do you think they're not doing stuff that we don't know about right now? Like, we
No,
can.
they are.
I would say we can.
Yeah,
do
but
it,
that's not
51.
on the topic.
But it's like we can. Well, I mean, it sort of is. It's
The way
talking
I
about the.
Persuasive
I mean,
is
I
Percy.
like recently have like been watching a lot of podcasts, and I know this is a little off topic, but I think it's on topic. And it's with Elon Musk, and he talks a lot about how like he suggests that we need to like start thinking about the future and like checks and balances within science because right now we don't have any system set up at all. He's like, I don't know if it should be a committee or some sort, something like along those lines or something like that. But like right now we don't have any checks and balances for science,
So it just
and
goes-
right now our only check and balance is like morality.
What's oh that news.
Yeah, that was.
I was just thinking like what would be a better argument though?
For
Yeah, like it says like are there better arguments that could be provided?
You could show his side because I'm not really sure. Is he for Tom or is he for the government?
No, he's for Tom.
He's for Tom.
Yeah, he is
100%.
Tom. I think he is Tom.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
His belief is Tom, like
Yeah.
it's manifested.
Yeah,
in
he's
Tom.
saying yes.
I think Percy's argument is convincing because it's not necessarily based off the truth. You know what I mean? Like sodium ion stuff like that. It's almost like a moral. It's like we're taking a test. So it's almost like a what was I talking about Percy's argument? And, yeah. Okay. So.
Like is it persuasive?
Yeah, I was saying it's persuasive because it's almost like the Bible with certain extents. It's not supposed to be taken literally, but if you can compare it to things that are going on right now, like for instance, designer babies, I guarantee you somewhere, somehow, probably in every country, somebody's doing it, but they're probably having test trials making super soldiers. Why would they not be? Why would they not be creating super soldiers right now? They could make them stronger, smarter, better memorization, et cetera, et cetera. So why would we not
And we have the
want to
technology
do
for
that?
it.
I hate them so.
I think they're in the room next.
Yeah, I think.
Anyone else have any other points?
Alright.
I'm all good. All right.
Thanks.
So,
Bye.